Weight shift could be ruining your golf game. In this video, I'm going to explain why that's the case and then what you should actually be doing instead. So there's lots of different terms that we hear: weight, pressure, force, ground force reactions, all these terms. But in this video, I want to keep it really, really simple. I want to break it down into 4 different elements: setup, backswing, transition and kind of downswing, and then impact. Now I've got an iron in my hand, and I know many of you are already thinking, is this going to be the same with driver? It isn't. So we're going to touch on driver at the end of the video. So let's start with just setup and what we should actually be doing when we set up to the golf ball with an iron. So I'm just going to get myself set up. I want you to place your feet in position, just stand up nice and vertically. And I want you to try and find a 50-50 point, so where you're perfectly balanced. And you might need to kind of just rock back and forth in order to find that. And you'll notice that when good players set up to the ball, they often kind of have these little movements in their feet, which is them sort of trying to find that balance point. So once I've found this kind of 50-50 point, using my knees, my thighs and my hips, I want to move them slightly towards the target. And what that's going to do is it's going to put a little bit more weight or pressure into my lead side. Now you might not even be able to see that. It's such a subtle move. But what it does is it just makes my lead hip slightly higher. It puts a little bit more weight through my lead side, and that's how I want to start. Now, I don't want you to think of numbers here or percentages. I just want you to find that 50-50 point and have a little bit more weight on your lead side. Key thing here, my head isn't moving. So when I do that in posture, watch my head, doesn't move. I don't want to be moving my weight by moving my head. Yes, that puts more weight here, but it throws my body shape out. I'm going to get into a lot of issues from there. So we're going to go 50-50. You can do that with your little kind of waggle between both feet. And then thighs, knees, hips are going to go slightly towards the target. And that's how I want to start. That is different with driver. As I say, we'll come to that at the end of the video. Right, you're all in a perfect setup position. We can start to get into the golf swing. And when we're talking backswing, this is when we really see the big difference. I really want you to focus on how you're moving pressure. Pressure is different to weight. If you're trying to move your weight, you could be getting yourself into a whole world of trouble. Let's talk pressure. So pressure is what you're putting through the ground. So think of it this way. As I stand here, I'm exerting some pressure on the ground. Okay, if we could measure that, it would have a number. If I was to jump in the air, at some point I would be increasing that pressure because I'm pushing down to push myself up. So pressure is what we do effectively to the ground. Now what we're going to see with great players is in the backswing, by the time their lead arm gets level with the ground in the backswing, they have shifted the most amount of pressure that they will into that trail foot. I'm going to teach you how to do that. What I see so commonly, and this is the bit that really gets golfers into all sorts of trouble, is they often search for this feeling of weight. Now, if I said to you at the top of your golf swing, where should your weight be? What would you say? Maybe drop into the comments. If you said at the top of your golf swing, your weight should be on your back leg, unfortunately, you're incorrect. Okay, many golfers are searching for that feeling. So what I will see is a very static first move away, and then towards the latter part of the golf swing, the golfer's kind of searching for that feeling of weight on the back leg. Now, I've definitely got my weight on the back leg here, but it happened late and there was a sway. What great golfers do is they move pressure, which is different, as we've already explained, and they move it earlier. Now, when we take a look at some golf swings, I'm going to put Adam Scott on the screen here, I'm going to put Rory McIlroy on the screen. What you will see is if we put a little mark on the lead hip, what do they do in the first part of their backswing? They actually move slightly laterally away from that line, and it's early. Why are they doing that? Because they're moving pressure into that trail side. So it builds early. And one of the biggest differences I could really stress to you today is good players move pressure earlier, poorer players tend to move weight later. Big difference, okay? And we're going to explain as we go through this video how it all kind of has this knock-on effect. So here's a great little exercise I want you to do, which is going to get you to feel pressure, and then I'm going to show you how you can make a backswing with it. Take a setup. Okay, we can go in our slightly more lead side. Take the golf club, hold it in both hands, start it a foot in front of the ball and move it a foot behind the ball, a foot and a foot. And I'm doing that with my core, with my chest, my core, my arms are doing nothing, they're just staying connected to my body. Now as I do this, there is no pressure changing in my feet and there is no weight moving. But as I start to make this movement more, well, if I start to speed it up and I start to get this change of direction of the club more aggressive, I appreciate you can't see this, but I can feel instantly more things happening in my feet. That's pressure. Now, when you look at that, you're not seeing me physically go one way or the other way, but because I'm moving an object, I'm having to use my feet to do that. It's one of the best little exercises I've found to give someone that kind of eureka moment of that's what pressure feels like. So what we can actually do is do that and then continue our swing until our lead arm is level with the ground. So we go forward and back, starting slow, we build up the speed. As I build up the speed, I really start to feel that pressure changing in my feet. And from there, I go halfway back. And I guarantee if you do that, and we could measure it, we would see your pressure shifting to that trail side early, which is what we want. We might see a tiny bit of lateral movement. What we wouldn't see is this static move away and then this lunge into that trail side at the top. When we have that weight moving late, we are just in a whole world of trouble. Your sequence is out. It's almost impossible then to create the right weight shift on the way down. Now, taking that into a golf swing, what you can actually do to hit balls, and I kind of love this little exercise, I'll probably show you a little closer with this in a moment. Take a setup, little bit of weight here, and then this trail heel, just literally lift it off the ground a tiny bit, okay, just a tiny bit. And actually what you're going to do to start your golf swing is you're going to plant it, okay? And what that's doing is it's kind of creating this little bit of a bump to the right. To plant that, there's your pressure. Stop when your left hand is level with the ground. I'm going to hit a little shot doing this so you can see. So heel up, plant it. Now, what I said a moment ago was I asked you where you thought the weight was at the end of the backswing. And I said if you said the trail side, you were incorrect. Here's why. Because once that pressure builds under that trail side, and we said when the lead arm is level with the ground, that's at its most extreme, from there, we actually start to shift it back towards the target. So when we measure sort of pressure, at the top of the golf swing, it's not a million miles away from 50-50. Because what we're doing is we're building it early. As we transition from backswing to downswing, it's already started to move back towards the target. And then in transition into the downswing, this time when your lead arm is level with the ground on the way down, the pressure should be at its maximum underneath this lead side. This is something I posted on socials, and it's just me hitting an iron, and it's giving you a visual representation of where the pressure is in the golf swing at various points. And you'll see kind of what we've spoken about there, that it's early into that trail side. At the top, it's not a million miles away from level, and then it's early into that lead side. So what we can do is we can sort of say, we're building early, we're starting to transition back, and then we're getting into that lead side early. And when we look at Adam Scott and Rory again, what we said was they had this little bump across, okay, this little bump to the trail side. But when they get to the top of the golf swing and the club finishes moving, they are already back to that starting point, simply because they've started that process of going into that lead side. Good golfers get pressure into the lead side sooner than poorer golfers. So if you're struggling with strike, contact, distance, consistency, there's a good chance that you're not getting your weight or pressure to the lead side early enough. This is how we do it. So once I'm going lead arm here, I then want to feel like I take the pressure from this leg and move it to this leg by the same point on the way down. And this is the next little exercise I'll have you do. You're going to go build under the right, build under the left, build under the right, build under the left. And then eventually you can start to blend this together. And I might be making this a little more exaggerated than what would be normal, but you can see how I'm building under the right, building under the left. And in transition, a little bit of a lift of this heel is not a bad thing, because what that's going to do is it's going to give me that little trigger that we used on the backswing, but this time to start down. So let's go ahead. This time, I'm going to go ahead and focus on build under here, build under here. Heel up, build, build. And I'm only hitting these, 100 yards through the air, but I'm starting to get that pressure moving and my head is staying still, which is really, really key. Now at impact, what are we looking for? Well, when we build the pressure into this lead side early, it should stay there. We should never back it up. We should never move more forward. So if we were to say we've got the majority of our pressure under here, halfway down, we want it there at impact. That is where it might be, and it probably will be, different with the driver. So let's grab the driver and I'll show you. So the big stick, it's just started to rain, but I'm going to push through, so apologies if any little spots end up on the lens, but I think we'll be okay. It's quite light at the moment. Driver is different, okay? It will be different, it will feel different, you will have different reactions happening through the golf swing. I want to explain quickly why it's different, and it's all to do with stance width and where your kind of center of mass is. Center of mass is basically the middle of you. So if, let's say it's around about kind of here as a visual reference point. If I was to go on 1 foot, my lead foot, where is my center of mass relative to my foot? It's pretty much directly above it. So if I was to put pressure through the ground, where would it push me? It would push me straight up, okay, because this is above this. If I was to take an incredibly wide stance, and I appreciate we would never play golf this way, where is my center of mass relative to my lead foot? Well, it's no longer above it, it's now behind it. If we put sort of a line from my foot through that center of mass, it's behind it. So when I push into this lead foot now, it doesn't push me up, it pushes me back. It pushes me basically in this direction based on that angle. And obviously the opposite would be the case. If I push through my right foot, it would be pushing me forwards. So with the driver, we generally have a wider stance. I would like you to have a wider stance. Everything is the same in terms of the initial move away, pressure early, pressure early. However, when we build that pressure into this lead foot in the downswing, what do? We push. Where's that going to push me? It's going to push me back. So very, very often with the driver, in some of the greatest drivers of the golf balls that we've ever seen, we actually see through impact the head going slightly backwards. And if we can measure pressure, we sometimes see that pressure going from the lead foot to the trail foot. Now that's not because they're hanging back on this foot, it's simply the process of getting into that lead side, pushing, and it having them push you back. But why is that a good thing? What does it do to the attack angle? It makes it more positive, which is really good. It actually accelerates the club head because it has an effect on the handle, which is really positive. So it's something that we don't want to avoid. So I'd hate for you to pick up an iron, do some practice, and then search for those feelings with the driver. It's going to be different. Here's an exercise I love with driver that's going to get you that feel. Set them inside, okay? And this is a little exercise you can do at the driving range. You're going to go build, build, push. So we go build it, push. And I'm pushing off that foot and actually lifting it off the ground. So show that again. So we go build, build, push. Okay, and what it's going to do is it's going to get you to really feel that big push through impact. Pushing you up, pushing you back, which is really beneficial with driver. Not so much with irons, but with irons we don't need to worry about it because we're already a little bit more on top of our lead side. So that push just pushes us up. With the driver, it pushes us back. So if you've got a wider stance with driver, and I would love you to, you're going to see more of this than you would if you had a narrower stance. So let me show you what that would look like in practice. I'm going to do this as a drill to begin with. I go heel up, build it early, transition it early, and then push back. And that's how we get the most out of driver. So if you're moving weight, you're doing yourself an injustice. You could be ruining your golf game. Focus on pressure, understand how that moves and how it might be different with iron compared to driver.